corresponded for a while. We sent each other faxes, we sent each other emails, and then somehow or other we rearranged our schedules and we met in the studio, in my studio in New York. He has a studio in New York as well. And we looked at each other and both of us knew what each other ostensibly did. And my first comment was that I have worked with snow and ice before, and I didn't know anything at all about the construction process. I knew more about the materiality. And he looked at me and said, well, he had never worked with snow and ice, but he knew about construction. And I said, well, why don't you just tell me what you want to do? And he said, no, you tell me what you want to do, which is the whole point of these conversations. And I'm interested in the horizon, and it turned out so was he. All buildings, all sculpture, are things that are placed that block your view of the horizon. And there is, of course, the metaphor of the horizon giving you some freedom, but in fact, the horizon blocks the view just the same. So we decided to build a structure that was not false architecture, that was not false sculpture, but at the same time embodied all of the principles of architecture and sculpture, and that when the entropic nature of snow continued and it melted, you still had your vision blocked by the horizon. We began to correspond with Finland, and our master builder there began to present us with problems, but we had no real difficulty not being on site, which I must say was fabulous. Somebody on this end figured out the technical, digital mentality, and we were advised as we were going. So I'd be sitting in Paris looking at problems with the ice, and Enrique would be sitting in Mexico City looking at problems with the ice, and we'd be able to talk about what we could do. And what we did is build something that in fact looks like an unfinished building. Every unfinished building has the name of the building materials all over it. And as these walls with light stand, you can see through these things, you can walk through them, but you're looking at the basic props of architecture built with ice and snow. And I'm rather pleased that it worked as well as it did. That's it.
My name is Pernille Louise Clausen, and I'm an architect student at University of Aalborg in Denmark. I've been working together with Haldor sitting next to me, and I think our process has been a bit different than the other participants because we made a competition proposal, each one of us. So we actually had like a different starting point. And also we got to know each other later in the process. We got to know about each other in the middle of December. And due to different circumstances, we couldn't start working together before the middle of January, where we decided to meet in the Rovaniemi. And we spent a few days very closely together, try to make a new proposal that was based on both our ideas. And in the beginning it was really difficult because we had a proposal, each one of us, and I wanted to convince Haldor how my proposal was, and he should just do something inside the structure and the other way around. But after a couple of hours, we realized that was never we would never end up with a good result in that way. So we decided to start from scratch and take our starting point in Haldor and his instrument. You can go and hear it outside. He gives performances every day. And see what we could get out of that. And we had a lot of different proposals that at one point Haldor was really happy and I was dissatisfied, and at one point I was really happy and Haldor was dissatisfied. But after this long process of trying to get to understand each other and what we really wanted, we ended up with something that we really both like, and that if you take the art part away, the architecture is nothing, and the other way around. So that was a really good experience trying to work together in that sense and make something that is connected so closely. The other thing that is different is that we have been working on the site for the 14 days that we made the construction. So we know what all the students have been struggling with, the cold, freezing feet, freezing hands. Sometimes you can only focus about how to get warm the next minute, but you know you have to keep carving, keep cutting the ice, keeps damming the snow to compress it, and yeah, things like that. But it's been really interesting to work with the material and see how it works and all the difficulties on the side.
She basically said everything that I had to say. But so the process was this, that going the long way around, we actually managed to make something that was interesting to me and beautiful to her. And this was the problem from the start. And even if at one point I was dissatisfied and had some doubt about the outcome, that is no longer. And I love the work, and I think I love it even more for the fact of having shoveled 14 tons of snow back and forth to get it there. And it's good now, because it was not so good before. We did discover something profound about architecture and art, but I think it was on a much more personal level than somehow in some kind of philosophical or theoretical level, because it was actually like a small personal crisis, the short distance of time that we had to collaborate. So in that sense, I think we somehow did this snowshoe thing to figure out the collaboration bit. We made a lot of good friends, I think, with the people that helped us on the structure. Some of them, there was a workshop organized by the university and the Polytechnic, but some of them kept coming back, which was great. Sweating in the snow for no study credits or money or fame or glory or whatever, just because maybe I had this theory that maybe because we were working quite hard, then maybe they thought that we might just die if they didn't come back. So that might be one part. The method we used was conceived by Seppo Mäkinen, and even if it changed a little bit from the starting point that we got on how to use it, in that it was supposed to be that the inner space was created ice and then covered with snow, the principle remained and worked really well, and it turned out that we kept the surface that came from this process, which looked very beautiful, strange, organic, and nobody was expecting, and we just saw it and kept it. And in that sense also, I think having been on the site not only made our muscles grow larger, but we also had a very big hands-on experience with the materials. And all kinds of practical solutions made very beautiful details in the structure. An ice wall that was purely practical, that Pernille devised to help with the structural integrity, that glows very beautifully now when the lights are on. I still can't, because the way I usually work is in this absolute artistic way that I just decide I like something, I do it, and I don't give much of a crap about what anybody else thinks. But so this is very strange to me. I do like the work, I really do, but I don't understand it. And maybe that's fun. It's kind of girly on the outside, and I get to do my stuff on the inside, and it's good, I think, but maybe that's up to somebody else.
Your Bass from Sahadit's office, and first of all, I want to thank Lance very much for his support and all the institutions, and say that Zaha is really sorry not to be here. She really intended to come, but her schedule was just too tight, so she couldn't do it. I wanted to say that the collaboration with the artist was quite interesting. First of all, we started developing ideas and concepts with preconceptions about ice and snow, as she comes from Iraq, I come from South America. We don't have any idea about really what ice and snow are or what they could do. So we started from the fluid, from the original fluid state of water, and we wanted, the idea was, what she wanted was to create a landscape, a kind of surreal landscape that would develop out of the topographic lines and still show what water is in its original state, is to have still this kind of fluid forms. And in the process of metamorphosis and of returning to water again, would change the landscape and change the topography. At the same time, creating an interesting space that would generate urban life and would transform into a kind of landscape furniture, where people would come and the perception of ice and of snow would be changed, creating different, always changing, multi-dimensional spaces. So, and then she met with the artist in New York, with Saiwa Chang, and they had a very nice, interesting meeting, and they agreed on doing a kind of two mirroring structures, and he would do some inventions on one of the structures. So then we met again as we had both more developed concepts, and he liked the idea of the landscape so much that he would have liked to do his interventions on both, on the ice and on the snow piece. We did a lot of tests, very much tests, as well as on ice and on snow with different liquids, and we noticed that the ice was not melting so fast and that it had a beautiful light, so that we agreed to have the fire on both structures. But this was always, we were discussing a lot about these points. And we said, okay, after the first fire we will see what happens, because even after the many thousands of tests we did, you could really never tell what really happens. And I have to say that yesterday it was spectacular. It was a beautiful fire, and the idea of always with these oppositions of the mirroring structure, kind of yin and yang, and of ice and snow, hard and soft, or solid and translucent, and fire and ice. Everything was happening in these 15 minutes, or in this time in which the fire happened. But it was so strong that we wonder if we can do it again. It was on the other side a very nice, very nice work with Sai and Jennifer too. That's all.
Our greatest thanks for your comments, your summaries, and as it seems, it's obvious that really this experimental approach, or let me say avant-garde approach, has been very important and very substantial for most of the works and artists and architects. Before I open the stage for comments and questions, and we'll develop the dialogue, Mauri Yläkotola, the Professor of Media Studies at the University of Lapland, would like to give some concluding remarks. Please.
Dear snow artists, ladies and gentlemen, from the viewpoint of University of Lapland and its Faculty of Art and Design, it has been a great honor to participate to International Snow Show project, and I want to thank the Chief Curator, Fung, to give this possibility to us. Generally, during the snow show, I have noticed that so-called zeitgeist has been around us in this cold environment. I mean that each period of time is marked by specific issues and problematic givens that are developed and built on. There is one particular fact to note in this respect. On the one hand, there seems to be a fascination all around the world with local art and local architecture, with local materials, as a response to specific environments, to contextual data, and to quest for national identity. On the other hand, the globalization and internationalization are the reasons why geographic boundaries have been transcended and an artistic dimension has to come into a play. Actually, this distinction between romanticism with ideology of authentic experiences and, on the other hand, enlightenment, which believes in general and universal forms of art, can be seen in Snow Show project. It's more about enlightenment than romanticism. I mean that there are artists of the world which are maybe not specialists of long artistic tradition of snow building in Arctic areas, but who have desire to play with the new material and create universal forms, or with other word, Hegelian words, if I use European philosophical art tradition terms, general ideas tradition. I think Snow Show is an example of that artists around the world are not based on Arctic, maybe long tradition of ice building or snow building, but who has general vision, how could I say, universal wisdom, who has been compiled to the national and local wisdom. And that's some kind of synthesis between enlightenment and romanticism, which is some kind of philosophically basic point of Snow Show project. University of Lapland has organized several projects in the area of ice and snow. One project several years ago was a virtual reality project where to the track was organized virtual reality with basic lapis landscape, and this track was going around Europe. For example, it was in Milano, in Leonardo da Vinci Museum, and in Paris, in La Villette. But that's example of virtual snow, and maybe snow brand. I think in the area of globalization we can also think snow as a brand. Our honorary doctor, Professor Lauri Anttila, has worked during 2 decades in Greeceland and here in Lapland in different kind of snow projects. He has given our ideas to the very famous painter Francis Bacon. And Francis Bacon indicates in his work, in his couple of words which are very linked to the different other scientists like Roger Bacon. In his work Novo Nocarum Scientiarum, how words resist perception. A thing may be clearly perceived while words are unable to express it. The percept is not disseminated. Bacon remarks that there are words that have no equivalent in reality, and that there are things for which there are no words, because they have not yet been perceived. And when I have been perceiving the Snow Show artworks myself, I've been thinking about these ideas. In a way, this wandering in nature is likely sculpting reality. Volition creates form in memory, in one's own or societies. As before, when the sculptor completed his clay to a distinct form, matter received the imprints of an idea. So now a series of collections is compelled into a predetermined form. Travels that before were a series of impressions are now closely tied to a plan. The initial idea becomes emphasized, and the final form that involves from it and contingency expresses something real. Movement is no longer mere progression from place to place. It constitutes a part of a whole whose constitutions are equal in value. Idealism permeates all of reality. The right place is everywhere. And I think that's some kind of idealism of enlightenment with possibility for us to have all international artists belong lapis artists, lapis creators, the specialists of snow architecture, which are together creating these snow cultures, which we've seen during the snow show opening ceremonies. Lauri Anttila, the specialist of the snow sculpting, wrote that the past 2 decades have been a time of discovering skill. Earth and its gifts, the familiar phrase, has been experienced in a new way. Nature constitutes a new voyage of discovery, a new intellectual adventure. Traces on the Earth's surface has received new interpreters. Skill does not disappear, and neither does language, which in its structure carries memories of former skills. And today, I think that we are in the situation where the memories of former skills, the long tradition of lapis and arctic snow building skills are still here in this place, in this movement. But we have also this kind of different kind of use, and the richness of the Snow Show project has been that we can combine these 2 kind of tradition, the tradition of romanticism, the nationality, the local skills, and the tradition of enlightenment, the tradition of universal forms, universal art-making principles together. And on behalf of University of Lapland, I want to thank you again this possibility to take part to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauri Rakotola. And now we have some 20 minutes or so time for any spontaneous comments, questions you might have for any of the artists. We are in a theater space, so you don't need the mic basically. Just use your loud voice, please. And please introduce yourself, if I could kindly ask.
Michael Ware from Los Angeles, where we know nothing of snow or ice. A question about the modification of certain projects from the original model to the final presentation. The implications you know from Serpo and also from the representatives of the architects. How the process of change in the case of the Sabbath sculpture, which is very radically different, and the anamorphosis, which is different in parts. Could you talk a little about that?
Yes, it is substantially different to the very first idea, which was shown in Venice, but that was kind of a sketch. We wanted to do a void space it showed out that it was very difficult to avoid, to come to realize such a space with the existing techniques, ice techniques, which, like Seppo said, are maybe they are now 100 years farther, but at the beginning, well, you could say they were in the ice time. And so we started changing, finding a way to do the most of the existing possibilities, because at the very end it was something experimental, but we still wanted to have something. So we came back first to work with layers. We wanted to cast the layers, and then they did some experiments, and it came out that it was not possible to do the layers in the dimensions we wanted, which was huge dimensions. So we had to really come back to the way they know to handle, which is the ice blocks. And we thought, well, it will be nice too, because it can be like a kind of pixelated wall that turns around, and could be very nice. But we still thought that the tools and the methods they had to treat these blocks would be would make it possible to do smooth surfaces and slim surfaces. And as we came here on site, we noticed that it was a lot possible, but it was more about really sculpting the pieces, which was really done thanks to great students. We had two huge student teams, one for the ice structure and one for the snow structure. And I have to say that thanks to these very, very motivated and great students, it was possible at all to develop such a structure and such a scale in such a short time. And thanks to maybe one or two very, very skilled Finnish workers too, that were acting like sculptors with their chainsaws and their great measuring systems.
Since you have the microphone, can you just tell us what worked with your effects? Before you saw the work this morning, what did the fire do? Did it melt? Did it crack? What?
Well, we were expecting that the fire would smooth more the surfaces and would create out of the steps maybe a kind of smooth edge. But it was not like that at all. It was amazing, and it was spectacular, and it was beautiful, but I heard afterwards that there were some cracks. Someone heard some cracks into the ice structure, and one of the chief constructors came and told me that something had happened with the ice. He could not really tell. I couldn't take a look before coming here, but I am going now to the site to take a look at it. And the snow structure, it was supposed, the waterfall was supposed to come from another side. Suddenly it was like on the face where we really never expected it, and our impression is that this whole top part is very weakened now, and we will see if we do another one.
As I've said earlier, the reason why our installation came successfully, almost as it was conceived in the model, in the original drawings, is because we respected the material. We didn't violate on it, we didn't rape it. We didn't sort of push it to the limits. We didn't experiment. So we tried to animate it and to kind of understand its morphic language. So, as I said earlier, I repeat myself, but maybe this is necessary. This made our life easier, because we didn't cast anything, we didn't sort of go for perfection. We knew from the start that this thing is not going to give us the perfect object, even if we wanted to do so. So we're strongly opposed to cast objects and cast architecture. It is a paradox to have a cast architecture. Anyway, architecture is not a cast object. It's not a cast space. It's
Position, right? It's your own personal opinion.
yes, I am.
We can argue on that
Of course.
forever.
We can dream of that later.
Exactly. Historically, I think we can argue on that.
Anyway, I don't know whether this answers your question, but we try to emphasize the aspect of making, not of appreciation. That's why I said in my brief speech earlier on that we strongly opposed to the formalist and expressionist paradigm. We didn't want people to appreciate our object, our installation. We want to use it. And by using something, you destroy it, you make it imperfect, you leave your body marks on it. And that's the essence of our principle, our common principle with the artist.
My curiosity is that in the model, here is the paper theater benches that work and turn them upside down, and I didn't see
Inside
that.
out, inside out.
Inside out, and I did not see that in the physical work.
No, it is there.
It is.
This particular work in is located in Kemi.
Well, I'd like to comment on that question too. Designers and artists have an idea. They got an idea and make the design and think what does it look like or what it will be. And then we builders, we are the one who are going to ruin the beautiful things. In fact, we'd like to make everything just like they have designed. But somehow it is not possible in all cases. In this case, in the snow, so I think that we have found good understanding between designers and builders and find the most essential and primary things in the designs. But somehow the result is always something which is not, which designers have think, not what we have think. It's something between that. And that makes this snow and ice buildings even more interesting.
Adrian Kauf from Aalborg, Denmark. The word zeitgeist was mentioned, and I have a feeling that happily the authenticity of experience seems to be pervading again in architecture and the arts. In terms of the work presented, there seems to be, both in the use of material, a certain depth to that material. There's a feeling that one knows that the material has this material quality, and in terms of the working process, the collaboration between artists and architects, but also a sense of authentic experience. So what I'd like to note is that, given that the projects themselves are very ethereal, that they were contemporary structures, what can you learn in terms of the experience of this, either the material qualities or in terms of the working process, how artists can work with architects, in terms of creating a more authentic permanent film experience?
Great question, please. You have an answer.
I would like to run with that because we were just speaking about that. I'm an artist who does not mind working with architects, but if you'll notice, architects generally usually mind working with artists. And the zeitgeist that you picked up on, as the economy starts to collapse, there are less and less commissions for architects. All of a sudden they become very interested in something that has been documented to the point of ruin, which is processed by the artists in the 50s and the 60s, become totally involved in it, not noticing that during boom times of economics, we have to live our lives with the most irresponsible processes going on in every urban area 24 hours a day. I'm fascinated that it takes always an economic collapse to bring the so-called arts together. And that is the response to it. The zeitgeist is that there are not that many commissions, so now all of a sudden architecture, theoretically, is starting to talk about the process of building itself. From the snow show, at least it took away the responsibility of having something in continual process. So it would become a Sisyphusian ball going up and down and rolling around. It is just the zeitgeist of the times.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I have one here. I don't know if maybe Lars would be the right person to answer. This is a question with what we call social or community approach. Question is how, if ever, such persons as disabled persons and people with relatives, the elderly people, and so on and so forth, have been taken into consideration while designing or planning the whole project and the works. And the other question is concerning the amount of space needed for the artworks. What was the starting point or the philosophy, so to say, behind? Was there any reason for the chosen amount of space regarding the artworks? Maybe Lars, you could comment on this.
For the project, we viewed this as an art exhibition. For the cities, they viewed it as a tourist opportunity. So in conceiving the idea and the primary concept of the show, collaboration, certainly the last thing I thought about in working in snow and ice is if a wheelchair could go and access the Zaha D piece when it's lit on fire. It was interesting when we had a student volunteer group from Rovaniemi come and meet me for the first time, I think about a month ago, or maybe, no, in December. Someone had just mounted a show at the museum about disabled people at the museum. And one of the students in charge of that project brought up this topic, which I thought was something extraordinary to consider and that we would like to include into the actual exhibition. But having our hands full on realizing the art exhibition, I tossed the ball back to this person who I've not seen since, of trying to organize a trip in which people could access the pieces. All of the pieces are accessible because Seppo has cleared the pathways and it is a flat, packed snow surface. However, for the art experience, the Kemi project and the Rovaniemi project are not redundant. In fact, they're symbiotic. And as I've said in the press conference, it's like a diptych painting. One half of the painting requires the other half to complete its tale. For Kemi, the physical and visceral experience that I would like as curator is that people meander through that vast open Lapland landscape and actually hike through the snow up to knee-deep snow. So you have this very physical, interactive experience with the works, sort of a sense of discovery. I remember entering the art world and meeting Lawrence Weiner and seeing him in incredible exhibitions. In one, I remember it was a Documenta or Venice Art Biennale. But I remember the sense of joy and delight and play I had when I went to that exhibition. I remember the experience of discovering art and philosophy. I wasn't force-fed it, I wasn't presented it, and I wasn't sold it. Unfortunately, I think the contemporary times, and it might be along the lines of Lawrence's zeitgeist theory, which is remarkable, and I agree wholeheartedly, everything is watered down, including art exhibitions. And this is an art exhibition. It's a philosophical exchange. It's a discourse. It's a conversation that's beginning here. The end result will remain to see and what the value and lasting values of what these people who have humbled me when I listen to them speak about how they've approached this project will result. The opposite experience is here in Rovaniemi, in which the projects are in a very linear landscape. and so it is accessible to whomever. Certainly, the accessibility of the project is something that I have valued. The materiality of Snow and Ice, let's face it, is really kitschy. The castle is for children. It's completely of an interest to me, although it was a seed of something that grew into this discussion. What's important to the participants, I believe, as well as myself, is the materiality because it facilitated a thought, a process, a challenge, and an interest. The material in itself, I think, is the least interesting thing. People long ago said, why Lapland? Why snow? It was because it would be a neutralizing medium to facilitate this type of dialogue. Because had we worked with traditional materials, as the previous question asked, which is interesting to see where this discussion has begun and where it could go in a tangible interdisciplinary project if one can exist in a quality level. It's difficult to start, in my opinion, from that concrete point of view because there's so much baggage. As far as the question of space, the site that was promised to me here in Rovaniemi was pulled about a year ago and was unbelievably disappointing, to say the least. It was an open landscape. It would have been a mirage in Rovaniemi. But it was pulled, was never clearly explained why. Nonetheless, we had to shift. In the case of process and all of these participants talking about how change has affected their pieces, mostly for the better, I believe, the snow show has been just like this little track on the thing. It's meandered and wandered, but there is some sort of path to go from where I began 4 years ago and where we ended. And fate has taken us along the way. And all of these changes and issues and problems have allowed us to get to a much stronger vision than certainly the chief curator could have envisioned. I'm not a brilliant person, came up with a simple idea, selected brilliant participants to execute the projects. And have pulled together an incredible family. A family of volunteers that have run the office, an incredible group of volunteers that are all seated out here, busting their asses off, and of course these participants who have allowed us to experiment and begin a discussion. What I sort of leave here in Lapland as I leave on Monday is a challenge, the way these participants took this challenge as an international group of emerging and established participants, is that people in Lapland and abroad pick up a challenge also, to make a difference, to say something, not to build a piece of shit that's out there that you walk into and houses people, or not to hang something on the wall. God knows we have seen lots of those examples. That's the type of people we don't include in this show, Snow Show, because we're trying to deal with a different kind of vision. So I don't know if I answered the question well enough, but you got one.
Thank you, Lars. I was just told that some people have to hurry for the airport, so I just want to inform you it's precisely 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. now, so if somebody's in a hurry, you are free to go. But I think we could still have time for some comments or questions if any of you in the audience wants to make a question, or if any of the artists, architects would like to give any final words, so to say. If not, I think we can finish. So on behalf of the organizers, I'd like to thank you all. And yes, still a question. Please stand up and introduce yourself and make a question. Loud voice, please. Who wants to comment? Timo maybe, please.
So definitely we are going to work with Snow and Ice after Snow Show. I cannot answer what is happening. This kind of event, I believe that this has been a really good event and never come back in this form, but definitely somehow we will continue here.
I believe, and I'm now, this is based on what I've heard in the recent days from the participants and from the different kinds of interest groups of the Snow Show project. I really believe that this is actually the beginning. The whole thing, the whole philosophy behind the Snow Show has been the idea of a process. Things keep on developing as a dialogue and as a cooperation and as processes. And definitely this should be considered to be something like a new beginning. And I dare to say some miracles have already been made, arts-wise, technology-wise, and by some other respects. Still one last question, comment, please.
About this club, what is happening mean for normal people who don't know very much of art and architecture?
Anybody wants to answer? Normal people. Sounds always okay. Please.
I'm a normal person. I think you just like any other person. You just go someplace and you have an experience, and you take from it what you take from it, or what you bring to it, basically.
I think this is a very crucial question, it's a very important question, and I think it relates to the zeitgeist point. I think what concerns the normal people, the lay people, the everyday people, the people who are ignorant or choose to be ignorant, is some kind of political instance, political condition, which hybridically kind of slowly and gradually develops out of this project, I think. But it is there. There is some kind of politics here, to my view. And this kind of politics can be, in a few words, can be described as a shift from appreciation to making. I think that if there is any successful conclusion here, in the overall experiment here, in all these installations, is that yes, there is a possibility of a healthy and collaborative relationship between art and architecture, and the message which the normal people, in inverted commas, or the people who choose to be called as normal, can take, is that our life, our everyday life, is not purely functional or purely aestheticized. It's both. So it's time for people to think in both ways. And I think this is a major conclusion which can be developed as a kind of theoretical point here, but as well as a political point and message. Disregard the names or the people who are important here or less important, or or names of the architects or styles or things like that. But and focus on the actual process itself, which disciplines everybody, regardless of what they say. Some people test their ideas with snow. Some other people fail, some other people succeed, but that's normal. But at the end of the day, the snow will disappear and will create a feeling of liberation from the object, from ownership, from authorship. So if you take a closer look to the experiment with the snow, you'll find a very profound message. Liberation from the ownership, authorship, the big symbols, big names, big statements and all the rest. I think this is, to my view, to our team's view, this is the most important conclusion came out of this process. And I think it's a beautiful and interesting event, and which can give even more ideas.
Thank you, Nikos. Still some time if needed, please.
Go ahead, use loud voice, please.
Question for the participants. And I remember properly, one of the starting points was to have like 20% different materials no analyzed and 80% no analyzed. So the question is, why didn't you try to use another material and try to improve no analyzed construction? So for example, for the Taha piece, it would have been much easier, even with the first model, to perform it in the first model with another material, like steel bars or something like that.
We'll take this as the last question. It was a great one, Chris. Thanks. Because I noticed Rosia left, I can't answer for, or she can't answer for Zaha. Zaha has been working on this project for maybe a year and a half. And so through email with Rocio and Zaha and frequent meetings in New York and in London, she would sit there with her sketch pad and we would go through different ideas. The original idea of Venice had a very traditional Zaha form with these big cantilever forms. And the question was, how can we make a cantilever like that out of snow or ice, which is, you can't, right? And you figured when we were carving, you just can't. So the issue was, do you retain that aesthetic idea that she wanted with the cantilever, or do you embrace the actual project of part of the show, and that's the materiality. So there are ideas of doing, she just had her show at the Max Center in Vienna, these molded foam forms, and that they could use one of the molded forms for the cantilever, build the rest of the project out of snow, and then coat the cantilever in snow. So all of the studio people were making suggestions and this and that, and of course I was sitting there thinking, wow, it defeats the purpose to make this cantilever. And I'll close simply with what Zaha said. She said, look, embrace the project of the snow show. If you make these cantilevers out of foam, you'll have 2 giant tits at the end of the show after everything melts. That was her answer, and there they went with trying to work with the material and embrace the project of snow and ice, material collaboration, and working with Psych-Out King. Thanks for coming, everybody.
It's time to finish. Many thanks for your interest. Enjoy the snow show. I wish you most pleasant time, aesthetic, fantastic time with the snow show, Mr. Club. Thank you very much, artists and architects. Take care.
Look how they pack up pastries. Beautiful. And what's more beautiful is what's inside. That's the only thing more beautiful. And I'm gonna enjoy one of these now and one later. I think I can put the box in the window.
Me noin 3 vuotta sitten ja nyt meillä on täällä aika upeita ja hienoja taideteoksia nähtävänä. Meillä on täällä nyt sellainen ohjelma, että Tuula Yrjölä, projektipäällikkö, sanoo teille muutaman sanan ja sitten meidän päärakentaja Seppo Mäkinen. Mutta sitä ennen minä haluan teille informoida tämän talvitaidetapahtuman tässä päätökseen.
Niin siitä, että jouduitte jonottamaan lippuja. Tämä oli iloinen yllätys, että täällä on näin paljon ihmisiä tänään ja toivottavasti tulette vaikka joka ilta uudestaan. Sanon ensin muutaman sanan englanniksi, koska tiedän, että täällä on myöskin ulkomaisia vieraita. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that there are some foreign guests here, and you will hear more in English as soon as our chief curator, Lance Fung arrives here, so he will be speaking in English. So I'm the project coordinator of the snow show, and I would just like to wish you welcome and continue in Finnish for a moment. Siis me ollaan nyt tässä pisteessä, että tämä Snow Show-näyttely on valmis. 3,5 vuotta tätä on puurrettu ja tuntuu aika uskomattomalta sillä tavalla, että tämä ajatus lähti hyvin pienestä. Ja meillä on tässä nyt tänään, eilen ja toissapäivänä ollut noin 80 ulkomaista toimittajaa täällä ja nämä meidän taiteilijamme mahdollista, eikä nämä upeat teokset olisi mahdollisia, ellei meillä olisi Seppo Mäkistä ja hänen miehiään, jotka on auttanut, rakentaneet tämän. Eli jos taiteilijat ja arkkitehdit ovat nämä teokset suunnitelleet, niin niistä ei olisi tullut...
On myös erittäin mielenkiintoista aikaa, kun on lähdetty toteuttamaan tämmöisiä erityistä neuvotteluja ja välissä vähän virokkeitakin. Pikkanen tänne vähän lähemmäs. Nämä vaatimattomat kukkaset. Ja tervetuloa Snow Show 2004.
And now for the benefit of our... Oh, sorry.
Yes, and now I see that our project curator Lance Fung also came here in this area. And I'd like also thank Lance about this wonderful project. So Lance, could you come over here? So Lance, thank you very much of this wonderful project.
Me again. I was not planning on speaking, but they always make me speak at these events. I would like to thank all of the students that have helped with the fashion show and the design objects in the gift shop, which will be open later. All of the products have been done by Finns, and they are extraordinary. And I think what's great is earlier today I was here walking on the site, and I met someone who flew in specifically to see the snow show from Japan. I met some people at the restaurant who came in from Seattle just to see the show. But what's most important for me is to see people from Rovaniemi here to see the show, because the exhibition is made by you guys, for you guys, and hopefully the rest of the world will be able to see what we've done here together. So thank all of you. You've been really helpful. It's great every time I come here, and it feels nice to have the job done. Thanks.
Me ollaan 2 tunnissa tehty se työ, mitä me ollaan suunniteltu 2 kuukautta, mutta me ollaan nyt onnistuttu aika hyvin mielestäni saamaan tämä näytös kasaan. Seuraavaksi näette siis hehkun.
Yo